With the thing. Hey, welcome to the Jennifer O'Brien Show. I'm your host, Jennifer O'Brien. I am super excited. Today on the show, we have very funny comedian Tim Banister, and I'm excited to have you on, Tim. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on today. How you doing?
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Just the opportunity. Thank you for letting me be on here. I know you've probably exhausted all of your contacts when you brought.
Yeah, I had to go digging really kind of. I was like, okay, who's at the bottom of the barrel? And then
Yeah,
you
well, a little
came up.
further.
I was like, oh, Tim.
Yeah, thank you so much. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so I appreciate you taking a little time out of your day. You're kind of hanging out in the minivan. So let's just let people know a little bit about you, Tim. Tell us why do you have a minivan? Why would you need such a big van? Tell us about that.
Well, my wife, we don't need it, but my wife likes driving these big boxy vehicles. That's what she's always wanted.
Yeah.
Even though we don't have any soccer kids or whatever, she's always wanted to look older than she was. That's always been a dream of hers. She wanted when she was 30. She's like, I want to look like I'm 55.
Yes.
I'm always about to drop kids off somewhere and kick them out. So, no, we went through
about it. How many kids do you have, though?
We have 4 girls, 18 down to 2, and we met. You and I were talking offline earlier, but my 2-year-old. Last time we did a comedy show together, or I've really done only 1 or 2 since, was 2 years ago when the little one was only about. I think our littlest one was just about 3 months old, 4 months old, and now she's over 2 now. So we have 2 up to 18, all girls, and we need a minivan to haul everybody around.
All those women, look at you. What's that like? I mean, you have 4 daughters, you have a beautiful wife. What is it like being the only male in the house? I mean,
it's crazy. I love it. But literally, as a guy growing up, I'm still a sports guy. Love sports. Went to Georgia. Whatever. Name all the sports in Georgia, and I root for them. Not into sports so much. None of them. I got one who likes soccer a little bit, and they sort of like that, but they just don't. They're not into the sports realm. So even like Georgia winning the national championship was like, I'm excited at home. Trying to watch the updates on my phone. That's about it, because nobody cares at all. I went there and it's been Georgia's disappointed us for 40 years, and we win, and it's like, oh yeah, we won. Okay, good. And all right, Dad, thanks a lot. We're gonna go back.
The girls are like, can we watch TLC or I don't know, reality shows, whatever.
Oh, you know what? She's 12 now. She went through a thing this past summer. She had a cold or allergy. She had a sinus infection. She was not feeling well for a couple of days. She literally, what do you call it? When we cranked through on Peacock all of Little House on the Prairie to the end.
Oh, that's how I feel like I'm doing so well in a global pandemic, is that I grew up watching Little House.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I got that grit from Little.
Exactly. Well, my 12-year-old was like, wow, back then, if you didn't work, you just died. That was it. Your whole family died.
Listen, how about the Christmas episode of Little House on the Prairie? This is true. They have a Christmas episode. You know how like Christmas episodes are like, it's Christmas. Ooh, I'm warm and fuzzy.
I probably saw it about 4 times. Yeah.
On their Christmas episode, kids died. Because they sent them home too early in the storm and they froze to death.
Yes.
Welcome to Little House.
We watched that. See, there's like on Happy Days where the jump the shark thing came from, right? When Fonzie jumped the stupid shark in his leather jacket and all that, because they ran out of ideas, of course.
Right.
But Little House on the Prairie gets about season 3. And of course, my daughter's also read the books like back and forth.
Okay, she's a reader. I was never a reader.
She loves that. So way more than me. Mm-hmm. But she read about it. But anyway, the first 3 seasons, 4 seasons, but there's a jump the shark. The jump the shark in Little House on the Prairie. This is our jump the shark. Is when Mary went blind. That's when it went off the rails. It just wasn't as good because Mary grew in this cute little thing up until she went blind. She got angry. She got mean. And they pretty much wrote her out because her character was not likable at all. I would have rather seen Nellie, at that point rather than Mary. It just got away from the cuteness and of their little nuclear.
Yeah, it got dark. Little House took a dark turn right there. But I think that was real. That was really happened. I think her sister really did. But then it came back, right? Then it came back. It was like the whole then somehow her sight came back. I don't understand it. I like I said, I didn't read the books, but
it was something like that.
Legit storyline.
my daughter picked it apart, like, oh, that didn't really happen, and this character was combined with this character, and wasn't really, but it was just the first 3 or 4 seasons are just so sweet, and you're right, it's gritty and has some really cool stories, and we loved it. But that was good. She got to see, it was good for her to see as a kid. Hey, about working hard, and hey, if we're going to survive and we're going to eat for the winter, you've got to do this, this, and this. And nobody grows up like that now, not hardly, not in America anymore.
Well, not yet.
Well, it seems like we're going that direction.
Kind of does. Like, I'm watching tons of prepper videos these days. I'm like,
oh yeah,
all right, what do I got to do? What do I got to learn? How do I skin a rabbit? What do I got to do?
Exactly. My wife's like, can you see how we got to start a garden, or hey, do you how we can grow potatoes in this sack or something? I'm like, well, I guess we could, but I don't know. When how do just different things, same exact thing. My dad told me a story yesterday. We went to eat, and how his grandfather killed birds when he was old, but it was during the Depression, or his great grandfather. How they killed birds, like smacking them between doors, drawing them in with like little crumbs, because he was too old to go hunting, so he had to eat something. He had to get protein. So this is like probably early, I guess the 20s or something, like living out in the middle of the country, this kind of stuff. Right. But it's just like, I was like, wow, you hear things now. You're like, these prepper guys aren't so crazy anymore. You're like, maybe I do need to start prepping.
Okay, I have a thing. Do you think the prepper guys are super fired up that the whole world's kind of just falling apart? They're like, man, we told you it was going to happen.
I think they're very excited, because about 5 years ago, I'd been like, these guys are nuts. Now I'm like, well, can I go, maybe I can go dig a hole in the backyard. That's what I'm thinking now, in some kind of way.
Hey, all I got to say is Bill Gates has several bunkers. Like, what's this guy know?
I think this guy knows everything. I think he's probably the cause of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways, I think he knows. Believe me, he knows it all.
He's kind of like, you bring up Bill Gates' name, and it's like everybody gets that pit. Like, usually I don't think he's very liked right now. There's several people that are on the chopping block, and he's one of them.
No, he's not. He kind of gets thrown in there with Fauci and a few other. You hear. I forget, some guy named Klaus something, some weird guy. It sounds like a German guy, but he's like, these billionaires, it seem like they're just throwing money at stuff, and they're getting richer and richer and richer, and pharmaceuticals crazy. And now your morning traffic in Atlanta is sponsored by Pfizer, and so is your afternoon drive.
Unbelievable. Like, they don't even hide it anymore, right? It's just, I think that's how it's been done for so long. They just keep it in the light. So it's like, well, what are you talking about? So we can't really question, but
yeah, no, you don't want to question, because your doctor, and anything to do with that's always been your most trusted person. You trust what your doctor says it's almost infallible. But now you got pharmacy. We've always heard about pharmaceutical reps going around to doctors' offices and bringing great lunches and all this kind of stuff. But now they're tied in. They're doing what the pharmaceutical companies are pretty much telling them to do at these doctors' offices for the most part.
Yeah, and honestly, you said it. This isn't anything new that's been happening. It's just now it's just really amplified, because it's this narrative about the vaccines and everything, and that's kind of something I'd love to kind of start in. I know you started a podcast recently, and you kind of talk about a lot of the stuff that we're touching base on. So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, Jennifer, you know this as well as I do. You and your sister, I know, did a podcast several years back. Y'all were doing this, your sister. It was so funny, and y'all did a great job. But it's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort trying to bring both your schedules together. Yeah, and it was brilliant. I mean, it really was funny. There's no doubt. It's just it's hard.
We actually had you on it. Is that why you're saying it? Because we interviewed you back then?
I did not add any bit of anything to your podcast. I promise.
Stop. You did.
But it was just that everybody has a podcast. I'm like, this is almost just a cliche. Oh, you're on a podcast. Right. Super, buddy. Yeah, you join that group of 4 billion people over there that's trying to do the same thing. Yeah. And you get through 3 episodes, you're over it, right?
Right.
So the whole narrative thing, when the whole pandemic thing started, or whatever we want to call it now, back in I guess March officially of 20, I was like you and probably most everybody else, like, this will probably pass. This is kind of scary. This is kind of creepy. And then it went on, and then it went on, and then went on, and then you started realizing through Rogan, even through Joe Rogan, there's doctors out there, many, many, many hundreds and thousands of doctors around the world that were very, from Stanford, from Harvard, all these amazing places. Yeah. Everything they said was suppressed. And that slowly started getting out there even before they were on Rogan, Dr. McCullough. And that's where your sister, I know, got involved too, because I started listening and reading a lot of her stuff. Yeah. And So they started suppressing these people who actually, one of the guys, Malone, came up with the vaccine, the mRNA part of it.
Right.
I'm no details and all that, but he's the one who came up with it. And so his opinion has no say. So it all became suppressed. And, so Rogan, that's why I like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with him politically. He probably agrees differently. He's different than me on his politics, but he brought debate back. He's like, hey, we're going to debate somebody that's maybe on the other side, has a different opinion, and we're going to have a pleasant debate. We're going to get along. We still can have a cup of coffee together. Well, our media narrative is taking that away. And they want everybody to be against each other, be divisive and all that kind of stuff. So it just came a time, and I can't remember what it was. I think this is honestly may have been where the idea came from. I was at work.
Yeah.
I was talking to a lady who came in. She was in her 30s, and we were just sitting there talking. She says, I'm selling my dad's car. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. She said something, but he passed away. I'm so sorry. I said, what happened, to your dad? So he got COVID. He was 72. He went to the hospital in the local area around here. And she goes, he was in there for 3 weeks. And I don't know his whole health situation, but I just heard from someone about a lot of the early therapeutics were taken away or weren't allowed to happen in your home. And then a lot of things were just built and spun and lied about. Well, the bottom line was she told me that he'd gone in the hospital. He was in there 3 weeks. She never spoke to him. They tried to do some kind of FaceTime call, but they wouldn't let her in because they said, hey, you can't come in because you might get COVID or you might spread COVID, blah, blah, blah. Of course, there's doctors and nurses coming out of the hospital all the time.
Right.
So they were keeping this young lady away from her dad. She never saw him again for the entire 3 weeks he went in the hospital until the day she went in and told them to pull the plug. So I was like, okay, she never sees him. When has this ever happened certainly in our lives, Jennifer?
Right.
Plus years. And I started looking into it more. I was like, I got to do something. So I read some stuff about the CARES Act and, people got the stimulus money and all that was kind of linked together. But there was some stuff in the CARES Act that actually took away caregivers opportunity. They took away, at least it was up to the discretion of the hospital. So some of the caregivers or family members, if the hospital deemed it was dangerous, or if they said it was because of the emergency that we're under in the U.S. still to this day because of COVID, Trump started it, and I guess Biden was able to continue. They were under emergency powers or whatever. The CARES Act, they had a thing written in there that hospitals could keep caregivers and loved ones out of the hospital if they said it was dangerous. So therefore, you've had early in the pandemic, you had, and even until now, you had thousands, hundreds of thousands that died alone in hospitals. And I know you probably already know that, but they purposely kept therapeutics away from people earlier in this. And people can say this is hyperbole, or they can say it's my opinion, but I've done some research. I know your sister has, I'm sure you have too.
Right.
That was true. It was kept away from people because I think it was done to kind of create some extra fear. Sure. I think the name COVID-19, if it would just said, hey, the flu's bad this year, it wouldn't have had the power to build up the narrative. They took something, put it COVID-19. It's really become, I think, the flu now. I think it's become the flu in a lot of ways, but the way to scare people. And now, it's still going, and it should have long been over with.
Well, and listen, 100%, I agree. I mean, I was watching early on, I started seeing a lot of stuff that didn't make sense around the virus. And just hearing about other doctors being committing suicide really early on, and I'm like, what's wrong with these medical professionals who are on the front line, and just weird stuff that kind of put some red flags. And I was like, there is something different. And I agree. I mean, we're 2 years now into it, and now we know so much about early treatment. We know so much about alternative and therapeutics. And I don't understand why we continue to push a narrative. I mean, my mother-in-law was with us for Christmas. She's 80. She got COVID. We did early treatment. Imagine that. She's fine. Like it's treatable. You can, and we didn't even wait for a positive because the tests were so backed up here in the Atlanta area. It took us a week, but I was like, let's treat symptoms, forget diagnosis, go after symptoms. But it became like this. So many people have been driven by these testing, and I can admit, like, we've tested a few times here and there. But yeah, I started to I knew something was wrong. When you start to hear that, things like hydroxychloroquine, or you've got these doctors on the White House, saying, hey, we figured out how to treat and help people. And then all of a sudden they're becoming these conspiracy theorists and these doctors are being deplatformed and they're going after like that. To me is like, it makes me want to say, pay more attention, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, yeah. Well, that's, I didn't really answer your question about starting the podcast really, but yeah, you're 100% right. I thought the same thing. I just was like, man, I think at some point you got to go, I'm 51 and I was just like, I got 4 kids and, I'm just, what is going on? Why? And I was like, why are some states pushing it harder than others? Why does Washington State and Oregon and New York and California sound like they're trying to be, communist? I don't understand.
Right.
And now, like you said, all this data is coming out that, children, especially under the age of, you can name under 30, probably under the age of 30, healthy, have little or no risk at all.
Right.
But we're still trying to force kids in certain states to get a vaccine that we have no idea what the long-term effects are. I was listening, but the reason I started the podcast, let me go back to that, is I was like, at some point, I love comedy. You love comedy. I'd like to think, I know you're funny. I like to think I'm pretty funny. I just like comedy. I like the art of comedy. Yeah. But I stopped I wasn't as funny when I started. I was like, my kids are going to grow up in this. What's it going to be like in 10 years? Right. Are they going to continue this where Jennifer, there are still probably 30-40% of the people in this country right now that are 100% like, get your kid vaccinated, put their mask on, make them wear it all the time, period. Right. I saw a picture, and you can never be 100% legit if something's true or not. But there's a picture of these second graders in Oregon. So it made sense. And they didn't get a class picture. Now, when you and I grew up, we didn't get I didn't get yearbooks. You may have, but at my little school in Griffin, where I grew up at Beaverbrook Elementary, we had one class photo. And it was just your teacher, the principal popped in the corner, and that was it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. And you got your picture. Well, this yearbook for second graders, I'm going to plug my phone in, for second graders had all individual pictures of the kids like you would in your middle school or high school yearbook. And, and every single one of them had a mask on. Individual pictures. They're not with anybody. They just had, and now they're going to look back in the second grade and see this cockamamie stuff where they all had masks on, and their teacher. There's not, to me, I know you're a little younger than me, but I love I'm old enough now where I like looking back at my yearbooks in middle school and going, man, was I a dweeb? I was a dork or whatever. I want to see my favorite teacher, the activities we did, and all these people all have masks on. What is going on? It is, even the CDC, which this won't come out in mainstream, but CDC has released that there's such an infinitesimal risk for kids to die. And yet they'll put videos out there saying, well, you got to get them, you don't want them to get sick, but but maybe a tiny handful in this country that have died that are children, all had, the word comorbidity. They love to they all had comorbidities. They all had sicknesses. They were typically obese. They had other sicknesses going on, almost all of them. But yet there are still videos and there's still nurses and doctors that are out there that are along for the ride. And I don't know, I can't tell you 100% if Pfizer and Biotech and Johnson & Johnson and Moderna are paying these people. I got a good feeling the government is involved, because many of these places can't function without government, with Medicaid, Medicare, all that kind of stuff, Peach Care. And if they don't fall in line, they will be gone.
They want their funding. They want the money. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's
follow the money.
They want them follow the money. And that's just the way it is. But the reason I started the podcast was, I was like, I can't keep doing this. I got to do it. So I really was like, the first podcast I did, it actually didn't even finish the podcast. I was just playing around with it. And it was because we've only got, I and 2 of my girls have only gotten tested. We're the only ones one time, because I'm seeing need to it. I just do like you, early treatment, just like you with the flu or the cold, and move on. Now, if I'm older, my father is older, so is my mom. Get the vaccine. You got to look at the risk. That's all it is. That's all it is. I'm not anti-vax. I'm not pro-vax. I'm pro-vax when it comes to the regular stuff, measles, things that polio that have proven to stop it. But this is not proven to do anything, because now people are getting sick now that have had all the vaccines. They've had boosters and they're still getting sick. Right. But the reason I started is that 2 of my daughters and I, the 2 daughters really loved 21 Pilots. And I've heard a few of their songs here and there, and I thought they were good. Yeah. I hadn't been to a concert in years. So they played State Farm Arena, but the only way we could go was a vaccine. Of course, this is several months ago. Or you had to have a test that showed you.
A 72-hour test, yeah.
So frustrated, because I do not want to do any of that stuff.
That happened to us too. Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear what you.
No, I want to hear yours. I'll keep it short here. We went, got it down to CVS. It made it harder than my 12-year-old had to do this. I was so furious that she had to be exposed to this crap. And it's the mind games is what I call it. And we did it, got it. Everything was fine. Thank goodness. Of course, hers was the one that got delayed about 12 hours. And my 12-year-old's worried about this so she can go to the concert. When it came back on my phone or whatever, we went to State Farm Arena. Concert was great, by the way. This is really good, family friendly. We stood out there in line. Everybody's like, all right, get your vaccine cards out, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Little whatever. So I'm standing there with the pieces of paper for my 2 daughters. And then all of a sudden the supervisor walks out like, all right, you guys got your stuff? Yeah. She just waves about 80 people like, I already checked theirs. They're good. She didn't get within 30 feet of me. Nobody did. And I was like walking in with a guy. Everybody had the mask on except for us. I was like, it's all about the health. Is this really about? I don't think so. So I was mocking it the whole time. But nobody saw anything. It wasn't about the health. It's about control. And it's about money for Big Pharma. I'm sorry. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's true. And it's infuriating. We had tickets to go see John Mulaney here in Atlanta. He was at the Battery. And I don't know. I guess I was still unaware. And like literally the night before, I just went on and they're like, you have to have your vaccine card or a 72-hour, test proving you don't have COVID. And basically I lost my Jesus for a minute.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because we spent big money on these tickets and we figured it out. Because we're in Atlanta, thank gosh, there's like so many, like I can probably get tested like, 20 times today. There's so many places all over.
Right.
But anyway, it was very frustrating. And I was so angry. I was like, I wouldn't have bought these tickets had I known so right now I'm pretty much staying away. This is my choice. Anybody can do what they want. But I'm like, I'm done with these venues that are making me jump through these hoops. I don't understand it. Like it's my choice if I want to get in a closed, confined area,
right.
And get exposed. In fact, I know I've had it. I've had it probably. I feel like I've had it a few times. And
when this thing started in February of 20, I felt like that was the worst flu or whatever I had. Did I ever remember?
I had it then too.
I was like on the floor, like, oh my God. It was terrible. 2 days later, I was fine.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you. And then you kind of sound like me and my wife. We're the same way. I don't want to go to a venue that's going to require me to do this.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit. Hold on.
Or just like you do in the morning, it's up to. Yeah, when I'm back. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. Cut out just for a second.
Hold on. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, that's all right. Just repeat.
This thing. Are you there?
Oh, I'm here. Hold on. You went dark. You went dark.
See if it'll come back here. I can see you, but now I can't hear anything. Hold on.
Okay, well, listen, I can hear you.
Come
so
back
keep
in. Hold on 1
talking, and I'll talk.
I was there.
I'll talk to the darkness. I'm used to it.
Let me try to come back in. Hold on.
Okay, come on back in if you can, if you choose. Hello. So anyway, if you're just now tuning in, we're talking to Tim Banister, funny comedian, has a podcast right now on Spotify called Dad Static. And please check him out. He's a lot of fun. Oh, and he's back. Okay. I was plugging you.
I don't know what happened. I'm sorry about that.
It happens.
But you're talking about, I don't want to go to some place like that that's going to require me to do something I don't think it's really necessary. It's kind of like when this whole the media pushed this Omicron thing. Literally, there were people lined up a mile down the road to any COVID testing crazy place around here. And I think that's just another money grab by a lot of these other places that provide the testing because the government gets the money. I know they do. But literally places were shut down because, and that's some of the places like big plants like Tyson that does chicken, other places like that, they're hardly able to do business because they get employees that are staying out because they say they're sick. And they have common sense. If you're not really feeling bad, why are you going to get tested? Just live your freaking life. I don't understand it. So we definitely had it, my husband and I, back in October, and we definitely had the positives, probably the Delta variant. Right. I didn't test. I think we had it again in December. Like I said, my mother-in-law had it, and I was like, I'm not going to test. I mean, I could still be showing positive from October. Exactly. That's what they did. Mm-hmm.
And
sure
it comes in, and it's about your immune system. Just, kind of educate a little bit, get your vitamins, get your nutrition. and treat it like you do any cold. Get your butt in bed and just watch, TV and veg out. Enjoy the journey, man.
I agree. I agree 100%. You're right. But hey, let me ask you this. And I know this is rhetorical. You and I both know the answer to this. I've seen a couple of, I know I love your take. I know you know this. Some other comics. How many comics can you count, probably on one hand, that are talking like you and I are talking? Just about, hey, all right. So I'll just say the ones that I know that I respect that are well-known comics.
Yeah.
And that's Jim Brewer has spoken out. Who I love, Jim. Jim was an SNL back in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Super good guy. So I met him once years ago. One of the nicest people. He's a New Jersey guy. He just moved to Florida. He's standing up. But you know what? He stepped out. And Rob Schneider, of course, you know Rob. You know who Rob is. Rob has spoken out about it. So those are two. I'm sure they're not the only ones. I know people say Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle kind of rides the middle because I think he feels like he has to a little bit. But he's big enough where he could sort of do it. Nobody else really can. But when Jim Brewer and Rob Schneider spoke out, guess what? They gained a massive audience because they did it. People who were like, wow, what is going on?
Right.
So why are the other ones? And even people who we know that are relatively well-known, maybe Christian comics or clean comics. Why do none of them, and I know it's probably because they're worried about gigs and stuff like that. Why would they not be like, hey, there is something funny going on? And speaking, they got a platform. Why? And I know I'm not well known, so the people say, Tim, you don't have a platform. I get it. Why wouldn't they? Maybe these are good Christian folks. Why wouldn't they say, hey, something's a little weird going on? I see a lot of, because of the pandemic. You can say what you want to about the pandemic itself. How about how about the things that have come out besides just the COVID, whatever it is?
Right.
How about isolation that's led to anxiety, depression, suicide? How about drug abuse? My goodness, fentanyl and all the opioid stuff is still going on. And it's worse. You know that you've probably seen this, but 18 to 49-year-olds, that's the leading cause of death is drug overdoses right now.
Yeah, we lost. I lost a nephew during all this.
Yeah.
To he OD'd, and it was terrible. We still haven't been able to. I'll get emotional if I start talking about it, but we still haven't even been able to kind of grieve that as a family together just yet. But yeah, it's I think I'm waking up. I'm going to be honest with you. I used to be like, oh, I want to be funny. I'm a comedian. Watch me, look at me. And now it's like, wait, hold on. I got a lot more going on. And I think it's not that we don't need comedy. I mean, people need to laugh now more than ever. But I think I find myself, even as a comedian who's drawn to comedy, is drawn to things that are funny. I'm more drawn to the truth right now and wanting to know what's going on. And I find myself just immersed in trying to figure and look at things. I'm not trying to, pigeonhole myself, but I am like, well, something's wrong. Something's really wrong. And I want to have that conversation. I want to talk about it. I want to listen to, and I have friends on both sides. Like you said, like you're not anti-vax. I have, family members, friends who are vaccinated. I have unvaccinated friends.
Yes.
I'm just trying to have the conversation. I'm just trying to get to the truth. I'm trying to ask questions. I don't know why a lot of people don't speak out. I don't know if it just might not be who they are, might not be their brand, may not be their style. It's not necessarily mine. I would never consider myself a political or, whatever. I'm just kind of a goofy comic. I don't know what my style is.
No, I've always felt the same way, but I'm like you. I just want some of the truth too. I've been kind of doing the same thing, but I understand it's not everybody's style to go out and try to say something that could be.
No, but I have mucho respect for those that just at least say it, at least say something. I don't have to agree with it, but like. Right. Let's have that conversation, because come on, there's some serious stuff, not only with this, just that's going on politically. I mean, and I'm waking up. I could be honest with you. I would just used to say, honey, what's going on in the world? Tell me. And he would just tell me something big. And now I'm like trying to pay more attention, because
that's interesting. I think a lot of people are like that too. Sometimes it could be the opposite way. It could be the wife waking up the husband. I mean, my wife has kind of like, wasn't involved. And I had a buddy from work who I said, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. This guy's crazy, man. A lot of stuff he said about 2 years ago, he's been right on a lot of it. I thought he was, and he almost died. He got COVID. He's in his early 70s. He nearly died
Oh,
but he
no.
survived. But you know what? He still believes the same way because he knows there's a crazy narrative going on there that's a little bit nutty. And you kind of went back and said, hey, I just want the truth. And it doesn't have to be about COVID. It can be other stuff. There's a lot of stuff
Right.
going on in our culture.
Right.
As a Christian, I think, well, you know this as well, as we've kind of lost our culture war. We have
Yeah.
spun things in the direction where even churches and pastors they feel like they can only say certain things or
Right.
they'll get canceled. And that's really scary. If they feel like they can't speak what the Bible says, they're
Right.
backing off and just trying to walk a line or just completely not say anything. And then
Yeah.
some people who are speaking the truth in the Bible in other countries, even a country like Australia or Canada, people are being arrested for it in these countries. And I mean, not that they're not doing that here yet, but they're not far behind it.
I and isn't that what I feel it too? Are we just not far behind? I mean, you just
Yeah,
keep seeing people getting canceled. And you mentioned Joe Rogan earlier. It's like now they're trying to take him off the air, and we have all these doctors, and then
right,
come to find
right.
these aren't even real doctors that are lobbying for this.
Yeah,
And then
exactly. A
now
lot of them aren't.
I think Neil Young's trying to get him deplatformed off Spotify, or he's going
Yep.
to pull his stuff. It's just it's like, what's wrong with, like, let people have, why can't you let this guy bring people on and have a conversation? Why can't we just have a conversation? What happened that
I agree.
and people are so addicted to being outraged. And I get it. I could be just as guilty
Sure.
of that adrenaline rush. And it's like, so I've had to really kind of bring it back to Jesus sometimes. I'm like, hold on, whoa, 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 whoa.
No,
Slow down,
you're right. I
Dad.
need to do the same thing. I need to. I have a good pastor friend he's all about speaking the truth. And I mean, some churches just hard to do, I guess, because they won't let you. He like when Easter came 2 years ago, they wanted to shut the church down. And he's like, no, we need to stay open. We need to stay open. We need to stay open. He had like 9 people on the Easter service. 9.
Wow.
This fear scared everybody away from church. There were churches, I mean, big churches, big, strong Southern Baptist churches,
Yes,
where we're at
yeah.
here, that shut down for 8, 10, 12 months.
Yeah.
I don't know why exactly they were that afraid, but I don't think God really wants us to be at fear level. And yeah, people didn't want to come. I get it, but open the church. People need to be in. Our community was taken away from all of us. Our community was taken away.
You just said a key word that God has really put on my heart. Like, it's community. And that's what we got to get back to.
Amen.
And I really had a tough time. I understand early on in the global pandemic, people still didn't know. We didn't know what we know now.
Exactly.
When churches and places shut down now, knowing what we know, there's no sense. It doesn't make any sense. If you are a grown adult and you want to make that decision, then you should be able to make that decision. But I still have a tough time when places are starting to shut down. Now, granted, your whole staff is out sick because you've got a variant coming through. I understand that that's going to just happen. That's going to be how it is. But I am wrestling with seeing still some of that going on. And
I see it too. Yeah, I see it too. I see there are churches that still do it. And sometimes there are churches that maybe not the type you and I grew up in. They're probably a little more progressive. Some are a little more involved in certain sides of politics, which they shouldn't be, but some of them are. Now, I am a big fan. I think pastors at some point have to not necessarily speak politics from the pulpit, but they got to get involved in the community. Because with this stuff going on, you got to get people there, and sometimes you're going to have to talk about what's going on in the world.
Right. We can't just ignore it. And here's where it's like, I kind of had that wrestling match within as a Christian woman. Right. I know my allegiance first and foremost is to Jesus Christ. Like, before this country, I'm a disciple before I'm a patriot. And I have to remember that sometimes, because I can get so worked up. Like, I'm like, man, what do we got to do? Like, I'm just ready to go and just take it on. And then it's like, slow down, and I don't mean to do that in that kind of country voice, but you know what I mean? Like, it's in there with me too. But sometimes I have to be like, Jesus, why am I here now? Why am I in 2022? And how do I kind of make sure that I'm staying on the right track? Because as a Christian, my purpose hasn't changed since the global pandemic. I'm still here to love God and love others, and it's just like, how can I do that without, kind of, having such strong views that I'm pushing possibly people away that need to see love, that need to see compassion. So I'll just pose that question to you, because that's something that I still am working out. How do you, as a Christian man, with strong beliefs, and we love our country, and we want to see truth, how do you take that stand, but also you're a Christian, and you want to be able to reach the lost. So
Yeah, I try, you're right. I have to step back. I don't want to take anything out of just anger, like going, oh, I'm just angry, I'm going to lash out. And that's what I'm not trying to do in my podcast. I just really want to say, hey, here's the truth.
right.
And I'm like, hey, and most people who are listening to it are probably agreement, at least at this time, they're friends and other people that, hopefully more people will listen. But I want, I have a lot of people at work. I'm actually blessed in a way that I got a lot of people at work that have all kinds of varying backgrounds. And many of them are the far one side, scared to death, got a mask up over their head all the time, look like Darth Vader practically when they're walking around. You've seen it. You've seen the welding mask looking craziness when you're walking around. They got that, and they're driving in their car by themselves like that, which is even crazier. So you see that. Then I got people that probably think more along the lines of what we think. But what I've done? I've kind of walked around and just started conversations like, hey, what do you think about this? When the mandate thing was going to go down. At our company, we thought it was going to come down here too. And I'd already said, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not even going to test. I'm just going to follow. God's going to take care of this, whatever. So I started talking to random people. Once a day, I'd say, I'm going to catch a guy in the back. And I did. And almost everybody I talked to was like, yeah, what is going on? This doesn't make any sense. The narrative, the forcing to do this and the force. Almost all of them that I just and I assumed that they didn't think that way, but they did. And now I've got like 6 or 8 of them that I never would have thought a year ago that will listen to my podcast now. And it's just crazy. And I've met customers that were visiting from New York and they told me, they're like, oh my gosh, people in New York are nuts. We still live up there, but we're trying to get out. And there's just, you just don't hear that on the media. The narrative is not there. And it just really is. But I think there's more people than we realize that are starting to wake up. Now, it's not enough yet. We need a lot more people to wake up to understand that there are certain states right now. The fact that New York City, I lived there back after college, and I love New York City. I'm not going to live in the city because I got kids, but I loved it. I mean, there was a thing the other day, the Museum of American Museum of Natural History, where they like detained, or they wouldn't let a 9-year-old stay in there. Then they arrested a couple other people. Part of these New York Freedom Rally folks. They go to different places.
Yeah.
Been arrested. Why would you do that when it's not about health anymore? It's like, who are the leaders? I mean, you probably heard the governor of New York. I mean, she is psychotic. She's worse than Cuomo. I mean, the things that she has said out loud sounds like did she grow up in East Germany and root for them? I don't understand. She compared forcing a small child to putting on their sneakers because they don't want, you've been around a little kid, like, I don't want to put my shoes on. Or you're going outside, you got to put your shoes on. She likened that to making a kid wear a mask all day long because kids are adaptable. Well, that sounds like something somebody in Germany would have said. Kids are adaptable. Just force them to do this, and comparing it to wearing tennis shoes.
Oh, they'll be fine. They're kids. They're kids. Make them comply. So they'll be good citizens. It's like, we're all in this together. Unless you don't comply.
I did that again from some of those people. I'm going to lose it. And they took down Teddy Roosevelt. The night at the museum, Robin Williams' character is inspired from that statue on the front steps. That's where it came from. And they're like, oh, we're offended by this, that, and the other. Were they going to blow him off of Mount Rushmore next? Is that the next move?
Oh, it's coming. It seems like it's coming. If we don't stand up and say something, it's like,
oh my gosh.
Tell you what, it's time. It's a good time to wake up. And
and that's why I'm glad you're doing your podcast and doing this, because this is if you got to go in a minute, you're fine. I'm good for a couple more minutes. But last night we live in Barnesville. You know where Barnesville is, south of Atlanta, way down south.
I think I've been in your neck of the woods.
Gordon College is down there. It's a little 4-year school, mainly for teachers and nurses. But we're down there in this little town called Thomaston, close to us. And we go there. It's a little bitty old time, little square. They had an old movie theater they bought and they built up, and we were watching this movie called American Underdog. It's a clean, kind of a Christian movie, but Zachary Levi was in. It's about Kurt Warner, his story. I don't know if you in the previews for it, but it was a really sweet story. Anyway, so we went a couple nights ago, and the church had it again last night. So my wife and my oldest went last night. So it's one of those downtown courthouses. When you look at it, you think, my 12-year-old looked at the courthouse. She goes, Dad, you know what that reminds me of? I said, what? She goes, Back to the Future, immediately, because it looks just like the clock tower where they did the car through and all that. So we were walking back around the courthouse. They've got several monuments. Sure. And they're actually, one of them was a Confederate monument to soldiers that died that were part of the Confederacy. And I sat there and I was like, when are they going to take that down? I was discussing it with the kids. And then I was thinking, like, people want to take stuff down, want to take it down. and they don't know the context of anything. And no one's celebrating Confederate heroes, Confederate soldiers that died. Nobody's celebrating that.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's a way to remember what this country went through when it split.
Sure.
And then when next to it, there was a, just talking about history and remembering and trying to teach your kids something.
Mm-hmm.
There was this weird looking ball on top of this little thing that we walked up to. I'd never read it before, walked past it 50 times. And it was a ball that said, no, it was engraved. It was put there in 1911. Supposedly somebody that was at Fort Sumter, and when the Civil War started in 1861, it was supposedly the cannonball that was fired into Fort Sumter. It was on this little statue thing. Been 110 years since it's put on that statue. Said this was some guy that was at Fort Sumter. This was the ball that came through, the first cannonball that came through, and somebody kept it, blah, blah, blah. And then they happened to live in Thomaston, Upson County. And it was this plaque with this huge cannonball, supposedly from Fort Sumter. I can't tell you 100% if it is the one, but I'm assuming it probably was. So my kids looked at it. They got to touch this piece of history. And I'm sitting there going, wow, think about 160 years ago, this thing was used. At least it was used there at the Battle of that. So we didn't have to agree with what the Confederates stood for. I don't sit here and go, oh, the South's going to rise again. I've never felt that way.
Right.
This is a united country. I love my country. I'm glad that the South lost. Thank goodness.
Right.
And, I'm not rooting for Robert E. Lee. I just don't think about the context.
It's our history.
Robert E. Lee and office. Dang it. Why does it do this? Hold on one second. Hold on. I'm going to. Oh, there you are. He was brought into Abraham Lincoln's office and offered command of the Union Army. And he turned it down because he loved Virginia. He's like, I can't do it. That's my home state. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. He wanted to be on the wrong side of history. Let's face it. I get it. We don't need to remember him for what he stood for, but we need to understand the context of some of these scarred people from back then. We got to try.
It's our history, though. It's our history. It doesn't mean it's all perfect, and we've made many mistakes, but it's still our history.
You have to know. That was an opportunity for me to show my child a cannonball. They thought it was the craziest thing. It was 160 years old. And it wasn't because we're from the South. It was just like, that's cool. That's part of history. It isn't pretty. It's not pretty. But you know what? We are the best we have probably ever been, probably until this pandemic, probably the best that we've ever been in this country as far as, I think, lack of division. And now Martin Luther King's vision for me, who I respect greatly, that comment. We've all heard his quote that says, it's not about the content of the color of the skin, it's about the content of the character. That is being destroyed by many of these far leftist groups that are destroying it, and they throw that out, and they are all about divisiveness, and that's what scares me. And that's why I do the podcast, and I know you, and I appreciate you doing yours, because it has got to get the word out. And if we can't get it on the media, on the mainstream media, we got to get it out somewhere. So we need more and more people just trying to tell the truth.
That's great. And here's the cool thing about you, Tim. I think your heart comes through. I've listened to your podcast, and you have a heart for people, and you speak the truth, but you speak it in love. And I think if you continue in that, I think people are going to catch on, because I definitely enjoyed listening to your podcast. And I think a lot of people out there will. It's Dad Static Podcast on Spotify. I know you served in our military. Tell us quickly about that, and just kind of maybe where people can find you if they want to hear more about your story and you.
Okay. I just noticed I have this really weird skin hanging down from my neck. Can you notice that? Wow, that's creepy. Here it is.
I have my glasses on. I can't see it.
Here it is. I'm turning into my grandfather. Look at that. Got a little weird looking thing, turkey neck there. Golly, it's awful. But I was in the military. I was an engineer, platoon leader in Iraq for about a year and a half. Spent some time in Germany, got out, survived. Thank goodness. Physically and mentally, I am very, very healthy. And I just love my country. I love everything about it. I know we live in the best country in the world. There's no question about it. And I just hate that we have leadership in this country. Some aren't even elected. We have some that have been appointed that are not doing the best for this country. And that's what really bothers me. And I think as we look to the future, we got to think about the kids. That's one of the reasons, main reason I do this, and you got kids too, is that I want to take care of my children for down the road, because I'm not going to be here forever, of course.
Right.
When it comes to the things that go on in the media today, whether it be, you and I could talk about this for hours, just about how kids get their information. 90-something% of it strictly comes through Google, and guess who controls Google? Not people that believe the way we do. I can promise you that. And guess who has Google's in their hand, a Google Chrome notebook in their hand almost every day of the year? Kids in public schools.
Yeah.
Everyone. Yeah. That's scary. And we could go on for hours because, hey, you feel you
Oh,
like
I know. Listen, I could keep going. I know you got to get back to what you were doing, and I appreciate you just taking time out of your day to pop on here. But
I'm honored. I really am. You didn't have to ask me. I know,
oh,
like I said,
please.
I know you told me 3 or 4.
Seriously, I heard you had a podcast. I didn't even know, and I went and found out a couple weeks ago. Talked to Sam Beeman. He mentioned
Yeah,
what
that's
you were
right. Sam told
doing,
me. That's right.
and I checked you out, and I was like, oh, I gotta have Tim back on, and yeah.
I'll do
So
this. I'll do it anytime with you. This is fun because even if we disagree completely, I would love just to
yeah,
have debate about it. There's so, and Jennifer, you know this too. If we came back and talked in a month from now or 3 weeks from now,
yeah.
we'd probably have 15 other things to talk about. So,
And Tim, I would really love to do that. So please, if you're down with that, I would love to have this conversation again and just kind of
sure,
talk a little bit more about some of the things that we're seeing and that we're
sure,
concerned about as parents.
right.
And yeah. So anyway, thanks for coming on. Please go check out Tim Banister on Instagram. I know you're at dad
It's
underscore
that, yeah,
static.
I've got it. Yeah, Dad Static on Instagram. I just changed it to that because I'm just focusing on that.
Yeah.
And then on, I think mine's on Spotify. I got to figure out how to put it on other platforms, but I'll talk to you another time.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah. We
figure
can.
that out. It's just on Anchor and Spotify for now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, definitely. Good luck to you. Thank you for your
Yeah.
service and serving our country. And now through
Yes,
this
ma'am.
podcast, you're still helping a lot of people kind of just having the conversation. And I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
we need to keep
And
doing that. So
you need to keep doing it too, because we need to have that conversation and laugh a little bit too when we can.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, God bless you and your family. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Tim, for coming on.
Same to you and your family. Bye bye.
All right. Bye-bye.